let's kick off with Labor One, the spark. Let's talk about founding vision and early emotional milestones from solo founder to, ultimately the team formation. What was the original problem you wanted to solve with Shield AI in the first place?
After 22 years of experience in cybersecurity, I think we developed some kind of illness on looking into something new all the time. New technology, new processes, new frameworks, new everything. And recently, like most of us, we discovered AI 4 years ago. It exists for the last 20 or 30 years, AI. But the fact that it became public made such a huge impact, and I was one of the early adopters of ChatGPT, and I discovered that I don't need to be a developer to actually create anything that I have in mind. So this is really the sparkle of our journey.
Did it start off as a real business idea, or was there also some kind of a cyber security frustration?
It was not a frustration, it was an observation in the beginning, because I was working on a certification for one of my customers, and I started to play with ChatGPT, and I noticed that I was actually sharing too much information with an entity that was new, and I systematically thought about the Facebook effect, as I call it. So sharing too much information is not a good thing.
Let's talk about your company, Shield AI. Organically, how it grew over time. You started it off by yourself.
So I started alone 3 years ago.
Okay.
It took me a year to actually develop the idea, the concept, because as I said, it's super important to be sure. Because if you go in a competitive market, your chances versus the big players in the world are very, very, very difficult. So what I did, basically, I looked if my concept had a sense, if there were competition worldwide. And after a year, I found my CTO, my co-founder. This is how we started.
Undeniably, I can imagine it must have been already a very emotional roller coaster as well, all the way from the beginning to where you're right now. Can you remind us of one of those early emotional moments?
It's really interesting what you're asking, because I could say that I have two small kids.
Okay.
Shield AI is my third. Mm-hmm. In the sense that when I had my idea, and it became not only my idea, but the idea of a group of people believing strongly on what we are doing, I think this is the real emotional coaster. When you see in the eyes of others that you are doing something that makes sense. Look today where we are talking in a fantastic podcast about this adventure. So that means something.
And then from the very beginning, was it clear to people what your business idea was all about? Did you have a hard time explaining?
It's a nightmare. But cybersecurity in general, and Lars might have a point about that, cybersecurity is already a difficult domain. Now it's not only cybersecurity, it's AI with cybersecurity. Just to give you an idea, now the way I pitch it to whoever is not in IT is that you have to protect yourself about threats in IT, on the network, on internet. We use our own AI to protect you against AI.
Thank you so much, Mustapha. Lars, XFA is built on the bold idea that you don't need to manage devices to trust them. What made you realize that this traditional way of securing endpoints was becoming obsolete then?
I was a hacker before. I was hired to be in a security team, and this is something that we saw. Like over 30 years, we've done amazing things in IT, and a lot of things have changed from times where computers were the size of this room, mm-hmm. where you would remotely want to do things and manage, and it was really a responsibility to IT. And I think now we all carried about 2 or 3 devices in this room, and it's just not scalable anymore. And what we see is that this new reality of people having devices for their own personal use, the combination of a device being used for personal and organization or work reasons, it's something that we have to support. And a traditional model of managing devices doesn't really fit anymore.
And back then, did you have the feeling that you were like solving a problem that was already existing, or was it just rather one that hadn't been recognized yet?
It was very much already existing. We saw it back then when I was in the security team, that if we did a network scan, a lot of the devices already on the network were just not known. And we knew why they were not known. This was because people don't want their devices managed, or it would make that the company would need to buy those devices or all these things. This was a known problem, and the world was solving it. But yeah, reality was a bit lacking behind.
Yeah. Every founder has this moment where the idea feels a bit off, a bit crazy, perhaps. What was that moment for you, and what made you decide to go ahead and to continue anyway?
That's an interesting question. I feel there was this moment when we took measurements with companies based on who was logging in, etc. Like how many devices in reality were like not known, and then coming up, okay, your full budget is being spent on about 40% of the devices. The reasons why companies get hacked is it was just right out there. And if you then, your first times you pitch and you have to make the bold statement as a bit of a salesperson, like what you're doing now, we should completely stop doing that and do something else.
It's wrong.
It feels a bit out there. It's like, so yeah, I think it's not that we realized that we were wrong. It was just like how big the challenge would be to convert people from a very traditional way of working to something that feels much more cowboy-y. Let's call it that.
Yes.
What was that first moment where you actually thought that, damn, this is not just an idea, this is actually something that could make a company run or work?
I think I'm a techie at heart, so the moment that we saw it work, where our technology works, that you can just take any device, and then the moment that you log in for any application anywhere, you'll have to prove that your device is safe, but at no point are you giving away control or management of your device. And I could just, as an end user, self-install. And the fact that it looked way crappier back then, but it just worked, and there was no IT installation or no... That really, the moment we had that in our hands, like I think a year after we had that first vision, was really amazing for us. And that's like, whoa. And then I remember a couple months later, we had our first customer, about 80 people spread across countries, and they onboarded in 2 days. And that was amazing. Just that we could, okay, this works. You kind of know, you've kind of designed it, but yeah, seeing it in action is quite nice.
That's a nice way to finish off this first labor. Thank you, Lars and Mustapha, for joining me today. This concludes Labor 1, the Spark, seeing the problem before the market actually does. Coming up, we will feature Labor 2, the reality check. The market always answers back. Thank you for listening.